10 years after our first green 6th Ranger, Power Rangers Ninja Storm gave us our second, with the green Samurai Ranger and his Samurai Star Megazord, the third Megazord in the toy line overall. Following on from Wild Force, this was another OG auxiliary Zord with multiple combination possibilities. There's definitely more to discuss here in terms of where it can go, because this was one adaptable Zord. And if you'd have thought we'd had already gotten the biggest combination Zord, where can we possibly go now? Just stick it on as an arm? Well, yeah, you'd be sort of right, but even though that's the definitive Megazord in terms of Zord count, that's not this season's final Megazord in terms of theme and attack. Talking about the toy history then, so carried over from the 2002 Hurricaneger Super Sentai DX toy Tenkuujin, this single Zord became our 2003 Samurai Star Lightning Megazord. Yeah, they added lightning onto the name again. My guess is it was so they could sell it in a boxed wave with the special edition second version of the Lightning Storm Megazord. Wasn't paying enough attention 20 years ago though when it came out, so sorry. In case it's not been obvious, my main 3 Ninja Storm Megazords are used purchases from eBay, hence no boxes. Both the first 2 have parts that are actually really tricky to get hold of. With the Storm it's the lion tail and the Dolphin's wheelie tray. With Thunder it's usually the Navy Zord's pincers, pretty much the only bit that unclips and is difficult for people to keep track of. For Samurai Star though, for its default mode it's comprised of just 2 pieces. The namesake Star is the smaller detachable red part, but usually because of its strong enough connection it's easy enough for people to keep track of it and keep it with the rest of the Zord for the aftermarket. What it lacks in transformations though, it's a very simple changing Zord, it more than makes up for in combinations. The combination options offered by this thing are truly obscene. There are 4. What 6 Ranger Zord has ever had 4 combination modes? Dragon Zord had 2, Falcon Zord had 2, the Max Solar Zord had 2, and one of them was just pulling along the super train. Even Predazord from Wild Force only really had 3, and they were just arm swap gimmicks. Guys, 4. That's what you're paying the money for with this one. Samurai Star really fuses the line in terms of options. Talking about the design, so design wise, this thing really bridges the gap between the Storm and Thunder Zord design. As a Zord it's based on a swallow apparently, which is a bird animal obviously like the Wind Academy Zords, but then it's also based on a military helicopter vehicle like we got with the Thunder Academy Zords. It doesn't have an elemental link like the Wind Rangers got, but it does continue the Thunder Zord trend of having the Ranger symbol be a part of the design too. The star becomes the helicopter blade and it can be twisted and released to spin for a bit, giving you a fantastic helicopter toy. The helicopter design was actually seen previously in Sentai, but never in Power Rangers really with a helicopter blade until now. I guess we did have Aero Rescue 3, but you know, it was more of a Sentai classic than a Power Rangers one at this early stage of the franchise. Obviously it's our third bird themed Zord along with the Red Hawk and now Ninja Firebird. Yeah, I suppose let's use this moment to talk about the Ninja Firebird. So like for the ThunderStorm Megazord where you got the Mini Zord, this next Megazord combination requires a new set of power disc spheres. This time all 3 Megazords deploy one each, and the culmination of power spheres 15, 16 and 17 become one giant Mini Zord. Is that an oxymoron? Anyway, the Ninja Firebird is so cool and much bigger than the Red Ranger's Hawk Zord, hilariously. Going back to the Samurai Star for its Megazord mode, I love the intricacy of the helicopter blade becoming its helmet cover, and how there's these tiny pin jointed parts that allow it to fold, kind of gives you a bit more personality to it. The hands on the Megazord do still technically open like the 2 Megazords that preceded it, but they're not actually as functional because there's a blocker of green plastic back there, so it unfortunately can't hold as many of the weapons as the initial 2 could. I do like how they allow the smaller blades to pivot to allow for better foot positioning. All in all, it's a sleek and neat robot. It can also hold the helicopter blade and use it as a shuriken. Thinking about differences from the original, now I know we mostly critique the removal of paint apps for the Bandai USA versions of these toys, but credit where it's due, the whole line pops with the colour it does choose to keep. I noticed this the other day when compared to newer toys which seem much more dull and muted. The colours are such vibrant statements here. metallic red and the gold for the swallow's beak just really stand out beautifully. And our Samurai Star incarnation doesn't actually lose anything pivotal from the Japanese version anyway, just the silver paint that serves to highlight the combination port on the Zord's base and later back. You could technically paint that in yourself like I've done on my Lion Zord. What I will go into, and it's sort of an element of toy history, but here we are, is the choice by Bandai between Hurricaneger and Ninja Storm to include the power spheres in the box or not. When it comes to secondary Zord combinations in Power Rangers, they're often creaking against the weight of what's possible and what isn't. Whenever there are parts to signify a mode change, they either have to be hidden on the robot awkwardly, like a separate piece concealed in a recess, or a Professor Quirrell Voldemort head on the back of the main one, or in some rare cases, as completely separate parts that materialise out of nowhere. In Japan, they monetized the combination with this series. Not only did you need all the Zords, but you needed the upgrade pack. Their equivalent to the Ninja Firebird, as they did with their equivalents of the Mini Zord, were not included with, in this case, Tenkuujin, and had to be purchased separately. So even if you did have all 3 Megazords, you'd only have been able to get so far like 3/4 of the way into the final combination. And it's quite distinct how those parts draw the look of the whole thing together and elevate it beyond being just a slight rehash of the ThunderStorm Megazord base. Luckily for Power Rangers, Bandai put the combination parts in the box. Now, it did come at the expense of any individual weapons. In Japan, while it looks like there was a release originally with no weapons, there was, I think, potentially a secondary or upgrade version where you did get balls 9 and 10, being the Cloak and Bee Stinger Zords. I know I'm a bit of a completionist, but as more of a combinations fan, ask me to choose between making the final Megazord of the season or having a napkin and a spinning bee, I think I know what I would have said. So there's definitely potential that a lot of kids over in Japan had all 3 of these guys and yet never even got the chance to put them together properly. They'd literally been paywalled out of the final combination, just out of reach. From a consumer perspective, I really think that was a scummy move by Bandai Japan, but from a business perspective, I can see why it made it to market. And it's not like you were completely shut out of combinations, as the Zord is obviously so versatile in its individual combinations with the other Megazords. I would explain it as the Karakuri balls being so recognisably commonplace in Japan anyway. They really have the kind of distribution system set up for people to collect them like normally, but obviously these came in toy boxes. And things like Pokemon saturating the market, where you've got tiny plastic spheres with mystery animals inside. It wasn't as big of a stretch or possibly as offensive to do a Sentai version. Now, I don't think it took off though, because we wouldn't see another gimmick like that done again. But I do wonder if for America it was that they couldn't reliably count on creating a new product category for it, and they were unsure if retailers would even carry it if they had. So they just couldn't risk it. I mean, altogether for me, I think it resulted in a much better play experience for the Power Rangers audience. What do you guys think though? Would you have liked or preferred to collect the mini Zords separately? Please let me know in the comments. So the main things I have to mention in terms of pluses for this thing are also laced with minuses. So I'm going to do that rare thing and fuse the last 2 sections together into what's bad and what's good about it. Starting by thinking of the negative, well, it's probably more like Dragonzord in several more ways than just its colour, in that the posability is very limited. The articulation is more limited than it could be because of the design, and like Dragonzord, I would say its playability is actually more about the artillery power of the combinations than it being a separate robot to play with. As much as I love the ambitious 4 combinations, it's also quite easy to dunk on elements of them as well. Going through them then, Samurai Star Megazord looks like a bit of a reach for this era, which obviously started by Wild Force with the limb swap era, and by modern standards this is certainly what we've been steadily more used to ever since, really. And we've certainly had even more bizarre arm combinations than this, but you can tell this Zord is just too big. No wonder that you have to remove the dolphin, because they really needed the heft of the lion head to balance it out a bit more. I will admit though that the dual rotation effect you can achieve from setting the propeller blades and lion head spinning looks great. Not only does Samurai Star offer a combination with each of the 3 Megazords introduced so far, it even allows for its own 4th combo. 4 points to the Star Shuriken, 4 possibilities of combinations. Coincidence? obviously very Wild Force S, let's swap limbs, practices we see up to present day. But we can set the rotors spinning as well as the lion head, and it creates a great visual of motion. Samurai Thunder Megazord really should be called Thunder Star Megazord, I think. As a concept, I love it. Using the feet propellers as shoulder mounted cannons is just insane enough to work, and actually kind of reminds me a lot of the cannon laden combinations we've had since the Shogun Mega Falcon Zord onwards. I love the design of the Samurai Thunder Megazord, but the weight of it and the backwards weight of it makes for a bit of a tipping problem. Apparently there were clips included with both the Japan and America versions of this, and I believe they went on the feet of the Thunder Megazord to try and help stop it from falling backwards quite so much. I guess what I'm calling the Samurai Thunderstorm combination, or Thunder Star Megazord, or Thunderstorm Star Megazord, this was the only way in Ninja Storm to get a true 6 Ranger Zord combo out of the toy line, and apparently it's a combination that only appeared once in Japan, and during a Sentai crossover that we didn't get at that. Again, you could get the lion head, the dolphin head, and the samurai copter blades all spinning simultaneously with this. Also, it's the only way to retain the arm articulation. This should be, in one way, the ultimate combination, but it's not. And the reason why it's not is because there's something else Samurai Star can offer. So what comes after a thunderstorm? A hurricane. The idea of escalation is realised so meticulously in this season. While I said Thunderstorm was one of the greatest functional combinations in PR history, Hurricane is one of my favourite combinations in PR history. So why not as functional? Well, it's the same as the Samurai Star's Megazord mode. The star blocks articulation in the arms. Now you can remove this and again try use it as a sword, as they did on the series. It looks a bit odd because obviously the proportions were cheated for the series, but yeah, it's an option and it gets you that posability back. But the Megazord looks so incomplete without that red metallic star there. Hurricane Megazord ties in with Hurricaneger from the Sentai, but also the animation of the finisher being a hurricane or tornado. Typhoon Power is one heck of a finisher, and the toy realises it fantastically. This is a non-battery powered gimmick, a simple wind-up mechanism, but it's something that realises the theme and title of the series so well. It works because even though 2/3 of this Megazord is the same as the Thunderstorm Megazord, they do employ some real tricks to make it feel different. Colour is the immediately obvious one. We've gone from a yellow centre to red and green. The head has gone from a subtle rounded blue one to a regal white and yellow and red crest. They even allowed the wings of the Hawkzord to be prominently brought back into this final Megazord helmet when it was completely obscured by the Thunderstorm helmet. It was at the time a very rare example of starting with an animal and then insect themed set of Zords, but then hiding them in the combination. Look at this thing. Would you even know there was a hawk, a lion, 2 insects and a samurai star here unless you knew where they were already? I love Megazords like this, where the Zords are obscured by the combination. It's so much more impressive than just sticking them together. Ninja Storm as a theme is the medley of all these suits and Zords. The storm is what happens when these seemingly disparate elements fuse together, and not just in a haphazard way, but in a well planned out and unique way. Samurai Star gives us designs we hadn't seen before and have rarely if ever seen since. The way it all comes together is impressive and truly a high point for Megazord design. I don't say that lightly. We have 19 more seasons after this, and I'm telling you, this was a very important checkpoint. And once again, you're left thinking that surely the Hurricane Megazord must be our final big combination of the season. It would be by modern standards. But no, we're still not done yet. This thing reaches truly gargantuan proportions when you add in the Ultra Zord for the season. But don't spoil your appetite, because to do that final combination justice, we've got a bit more that we need to get through first. We've only scratched the surface of the sheer number of mini-Zords that there were in this season. So join me next time when we get to grips with the 18 Power Spheres and how many actually made it over for the Power Rangers toy line. So 3/5 of the way through Ninja Storm, guys. Please subscribe to Power Ranger Tube if you've not done so already, so you can be among the first to see the next part of our Ninja Storm retro review series. In 6 years on YouTube, I've never been asked when a video is coming next as often as I have for this. so I hope it's lived up to your expectations. And if you're after a bonus hit of stuff, do check out Power Ranger Tube on Patreon. My latest video there is also indirectly ninja themed, I guess, as I recently picked up the last Deluxe Mighty Morphin Zords that evaded me for nearly 3 decades. It's the Alien Rangers Battleborgs. So if you want to see my impressions on those, go join the Viewing Globe tier to get access to that. Thank you as ever to my existing Patreons as well. So until the next time, see you later.